Welcome to the Hardcore MBA Podcast with your host, Erlend, Bakke.
Hello, Erlend Bakke here, founder of MrOutsource.com and the author of Never Work Again, which I have self-promoting myself behind here. I'm working on my personal brand, and today Bianca Miller is on the show. She's an award-winning entrepreneur. She was featured on The Apprentice. She was one of the last two candidates. One of them you might know, Mark Wright, who's also been on the show here. She runs a successful fashion company, a hosiery company, where she's discovered a real special niche, which she's tapping into, and her things are featured in one of the most famous department stores in the world, at Selfridges. And she works with clients like HSBC, Accenture, Amex. And it kind of makes you feel a little bit dated when she's 27 years old and she's done so many things already in her life. And I'm just really, really excited about hearing about how I can develop my own personal brand and also hear about your journey.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. What a nice introduction.
Of course. So how did you actually get started in business at all? Because it's not a natural sort of thing to do. I mean, I hang out with a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm sure you do too, but most people are not. Yes,
very true, very true. I think I was born to be an entrepreneur. I know it sounds maybe a little bit full of myself, but my parents were entrepreneurial. So I kind of grew up in an entrepreneurial environment where my dad had businesses, my mum was freelance. I didn't really get to see that world within, obviously, my house, where people had a 9-to-5. Kind of business was what my family did, and so my uncles and aunts as well. So that was kind of almost ingrained, I think. So I kind of started my first business at about 12, 13. I had a love of dance. And I thought, how can I monetize this? As you do when you're 12, clearly. And I went to a local primary school. I started teaching dance to the local primary school kids and obviously charging the school for doing so. And then paying a couple of friends, obviously less than the invoice, to come and help me out. So that was kind of how it started. Then about 17, I wasn't really allowed out very much. My parents are quite strict. So I thought, how can I get out, legitimately? So I started doing under 18s parties.
Okay.
And managed to do about 3 before my parents said, can you stop and actually, get your, finish your education, go and get a degree.
So they were still pushing the school education, even though you were clearly showing entrepreneurial.
Yeah, absolutely. So to be honest, my dad was like, being a business person is stressful. Go and get a really good job, get a career, get, the things that come with that, which is, holidays and bonuses and healthcare, He didn't want me to be so, I guess, stressed like he often was in business. So they were really pushing education. Whether I decided to go into business or not, they felt I need that education behind me in case it didn't work out. So I finished my education, went to university, got a job in the city working for Accenture, and I was their HR advisor for their graduate group. So I went for this interview, got the job, and day one I was suddenly advising 350 graduates on how to kind of grow their career in organisation and with all the other HR elements, having only done one module of HR myself and having been a graduate myself. So that was very much the moment where I thought, okay, this is interesting, huge organisation, great opportunity, and I kind of embraced it and thought, okay, this city life might be what I decide to do. But it was about 2 years in, and I thought, I don't really want to be here anymore. But at the same time...
What were the kind of itches? Sorry, I interrupt people.
No, you're fine.
What were the kind of itches that you were feeling when you started to say, oh, I'm not sure this is for me anymore?
Yeah. So actually what happened, someone in the senior management team said, Bianca, we've got this issue. We've got fantastic graduates from an academic perspective, but they're not very good at personal branding. And you seem quite good naturally at this stuff. So can you help them? So I started delivering training on personal branding, on communication, networking. And that's when I thought, I like this side of HR. But I looked at what all the other people above me, at that point, everyone was saying it's time to go for promotion. I looked at the other HR people and I thought, do I want to be in HR? Is this kind of the career path for me?
So you kind of looked like, 15 years ahead and went like, I'll be that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as nice as that person was, that wasn't who I wanted to be going forward. So I thought, okay, I like this training stuff. So then I left, not really knowing what I wanted to do. I went into recruitment. And being in an independent recruitment company, I saw that it wasn't just graduates who were struggling with, communication, CV writing, interview skills. We had people of all ages not really being able to communicate effectively why they were the best person for the job, or why they were, good at what they did, or what their unique selling point was. And that's when I decided to start my first business.
Okay. I remember my brother, he was working at Lehman Brothers. Have you heard of Lehman Brothers?
I have, yes.
Yeah. So he was working there, and he saw his boss. And one day he asked his boss how old he was. And he was shocked because he looked about 20 years older than his, 48 years.
Right.
And that's when he realized that I don't want to stay here for the next 24 years to be looking like you. So he actually changed his career, which is good because you can model other people, right? You can look at what somebody's done and like their steps, and then you can say, oh, I don't want that, I can do this instead. So who really inspires you of the entrepreneurs? What kind of entrepreneurs do you look to when you say like, oh, this person is somebody I would like to emulate?
Yeah, sure. So I have in my network lots of entrepreneurs that I really look up to at different levels of their entrepreneurial careers. There are people who are kind of startup phase. There are people who are, in the middle, and there's people who are doing extremely well. And it's good to be surrounded by fellow entrepreneurs, because I think that gives you insight into things you could be doing better, things you're doing well at, and it's just good from a networking perspective. But from a kind of a greater view, I guess, I really respect Oprah. I think she's phenomenal because she is the type of person who has created something from nothing, essentially, but has grown amazing businesses, but is also philanthropic. She gives back, she helps others. I think that's such an important part of being a business person. And the other person is probably Richard Branson. I just think that, again, he's grown amazing businesses. He's created a brand that can go into various different areas, planes, money, insurance, and yet it's still, the brand virtue still remains true.
Yep.
And he is still quite a nice person. I think a lot of the time in business, there's this strange perception that if you're going to get ahead, if you're going to be successful, then you have to be horrible. You have to be negative or knock other people down. And I don't think that always has to be the case. And I like what he personifies.
Absolutely. So when you took the leap, was it scary or were you super confident?
It was scary. I had just bought a flat. I was, used to getting a good salary, and suddenly I was taking a leap of faith into the unknown. I always thought, okay, if it doesn't work out, I can always go and get a job. I got good enough credentials, had a good academic history. But I thought I needed to take that chance. But I was only 22, 23. I was probably quite naive, really, when I look back, because you know how it is when you start a business. You've got amazing spreadsheets, the kind of spreadsheet millionaire philosophy, and you've got an amazing business plan. And, by year one, you're going to be doing phenomenally and you've taken over the world. And then there's the reality that actually it takes a long time to build a brand, to build credibility, to build clients. And I was starting from scratch. So it was scary. I think I'd be lying to you if I said, oh, yeah, it was great. I just, one day thought, I'm going to leave, and there was a business there. It just doesn't happen like that for most people.
Yeah, I guess the Seth Godin talks about sort of pushing the... this is something that I haven't done very well successfully myself. But he talks about pushing the stone downhill. So like if somebody like comes to you and like there's a big problem and you solve it and it's like financially viable to keep on doing that for a large scale of people, then you're kind of like, you make it easier for yourself. Because my first business was very sort of like, oh, I believe in this idea, I believe the world should have this, and I'm just going to make it happen. And that's kind of like, then you're sort of pushing it uphill, which is fine. You know, I think a lot of the innovations in the world come from people that are just stubbornly going to make something happen. But I think if you want to have an easy start in business, just like look for a problem and then solve it for somebody, and then ask if they know somebody else that needs the same solution.
And to be honest, that's what I did. So my first client, I basically, because I was delivering training within my job at Accenture, I went to the people who used to facilitate the training organisation and said, look, this is what I'm going to do. What do you think? And they said, great, you're a fantastic trainer. You've got the best ratings we've ever had. So yeah, we'll support you. And then they said, okay, we'll introduce you to someone. And they introduced me to my first client who, you know, did I do a good job? It was good enough that they're still a client 4 years later. They're paying a lot more than they were paying at the beginning. So, you know, I think but it was a journey. They'd had enough faith in me to introduce me to someone else. And then it started from there. But you're right, you have to make your proposition something that people need, but then you have to tell them why they need it from you. And I think that's the hard connection sometimes.
So that business, that's still going. And,
yes.
And what kind of scale is that at now?
So we deliver workshops for most of the kind of blue chip organizations currently, and we're expanding. So we work with corporate organizations delivering personal branding solutions for existing employees. So people who have already got the job and need to really define who they are and look at how their brand and their marketing of themselves will affect their future career progression. And then we also go into universities and schools and help people who haven't got a job yet think about their personal brand and the impact that has on actually getting a job in the first place. So the CV writing, the interview skills, what does your online social media look like, and is that stopping you getting the job? So that's great.
Stop posting nude pictures of yourself on Instagram.
Yeah, and you know, I've seen those pictures. Stop doing it.
Yeah. So, they're not mine.
So, you know, they just and people, you know, stumbling out of a club on a Friday night. You know, it's
so drunk. I can't believe I'm going to have such a bad hangover tomorrow. But that's okay because I'm only going to binge watch TV all day.
Yes. Yeah.
You're employable.
Yeah.
Please tell me more.
Yeah. Or calling in sick and then posting a picture of you in the park. Yeah. You know, those good things that people seem to be doing so often and not realising the impact that has, and the reality that employers are Googling your name, are looking on your Facebook potentially before they offer you that job. And are you stopping yourself before you even gotten started?
So I'm just curious, I understand people that are at university, they need to brand themselves and develop a brand. What about people in organizations? How does that work? Is that to progress within the organization? Because why would an employer help somebody brand themselves to get a job somewhere else?
No, so it's to progress within the organization. So what we found is some of our clients, they have a particular issue with maybe women not progressing up the ranks and getting to kind of board level positions or director level positions because they haven't branded themselves and they're not confident enough. So we might work with that group. Or we have graduates who have just started and don't understand the impact of their personal brand on that organisation, and how that might affect their management team, their promotion cycle and so on. Or we have people who are potential leaders and they just need that fine-tuning and help with their personal brand and how they work with their team, their confidence, their networking, their communication, to get them to the point where they're ready to lead, you know, so really hitting them on that kind of leadership impact point.
And in terms of the actual business model, do you have like a sort of retainer where people say, oh, we're going to do one workshop a month for the next 2 years? How do you sort of lock in your cash flow?
So we don't have a retainer system. We just have clients that book us regularly. I could probably tell you, you know, each of the clients when they're going to book. And every year they sort of book the same sort of time slot, same time of year. every year because they have programs that they run. So if you have a graduate program and you have an intake 4 times a year, then 4 times a year we're going to deliver the workshops, the training. And then we have some clients that are really ad hoc. I think it's important to give clients the space to look at what they need when they need it. And so sometimes if a client wants to try something new, they still will call and try something new with us.
So for anybody watching this that wants to sort of break into corporate, do workshops for them, what kind of advice can you give?
I think just trying to be different, to actively differentiate yourself from the existing trainers. I think what makes us unique is the way we deliver information. So we make it really really interesting, really interactive, but also really actionable. So that's kind of what makes us different. And I know that's why our clients, love the workshops we give and we get such great feedback. So I think it's about being different. There's lots of training organizations out there. There is a lot of competition. So you have to knock that door, but also keep knocking, because corporates have a long decision-making process a lot of the time. So you might be knocking that door in January and they might not think they need you or call you back until the following January. Mm-hmm. So you can't really put your eggs in one basket. You have to be really proactive and keep on the ball.
Right, so the sales cycle is really long.
It can be. I mean, there's times where I've been referred to one corporate's referred me to another, or an individual's referred me to somewhere else, and literally they've booked for the next month. But there are also times where we've had conversations, we've talked about programs, we've decided what we're going to do, and that doesn't happen for another 6 to 12 months.
So do you meet people typically at conferences and things like that, or is it mostly like word of mouth? What's the main sales channel?
Yeah, so our business has been growing mostly by word of mouth and referrals. So when I deliver talks, usually for an organisation, I do keynotes as well. So if I've delivered a keynote or I've done a workshop, they generally book for another department, or they generally tell a friend who happens to work somewhere else, and you get a phone call from them. Because I think referral is so important. People don't want to take the risk that they're going to try something new and it's not going to be good. Mm-hmm. So if someone else that they trust says actually they're really good, then it's less of a risk. And I think that's a lot of the time where the work comes from. And just, I do a lot of kind of conferences as well. So I speak at a lot of events. So last week, for example, in the UK, we had 2 shows called the Business Show and the Office Show. The Business Show is, as it says, it's kind of an entrepreneurial business show where people go and get advice about business. The Office Show is a show for PAs, EAs, VAs, so personal system assistants, virtual assistants, and executive assistants. And I spoke at both. And so as a result of that, if you think about the number of people in each room, I think there was 200 or so in each room, though they represent various organisations. And so since then, we've got lots of inquiries from different organisations as a result. Right,
so you use speaking as a way of marketing?
Absolutely, yeah. Speaking, networking. Networking is crucial. I go to a lot of events, and I think that's such an important part too, yeah. I firmly believe in networking. Networking, referrals and testimonials, I think, are so important. And speaking is a good way of kind of disseminating information and letting people see what you're doing and who you are.
So let's talk about your personal brand, because you've used a lot of sort of personal brand elements in your website. You've got awards, testimonials, you've got TV fame, and you align yourself with brands as well through the testimonials. So what other things can somebody do? So let's start with the first step. So why have you chosen those vehicles, and how have they worked for you?
Do you mean just the website testimonials?
Yeah. Why do you have that on your website, and How does it leverage your brand?
Absolutely. So I think when you're building a website or building an online kind of platform or personal brand, I think what resonates with people is knowing what you've done previously. A lot of the time they want to know your history. So having testimonials proves what you've done previously and what you've done well and what their thoughts were about your service. But it also illustrates the type of customer you've worked for previously. And I think most organisations, yes, they want to try something new, but they also don't necessarily want to be the first. So if they found that actually, oh, you've worked with, let's just do banks because it's easy. Okay, so she's worked for HSBC, Barclays, have a look at my website. Oh, she's done a bank before, she's safe. She knows that she understands banking, Yeah. So it's a little bit about that as well. And it's about credibility. If you can say, I've worked with these organizations and most of them are household names, then you kind of, it's almost like a bit of a seal of approval. They've taken the service, it must be good. I also use, the web to highlight what I do, in terms of things I do for charity, things I do for my organisation, a little bit about my life, because actually people want to see often in an entrepreneurial scenario that there is a person behind this business. It isn't just this huge organisation that doesn't have a face. People kind of know a lot about me. I'm quite open to some extent about my life, what I do, my interests, because actually, I'm not just this funny, business person character. There is something else behind that. And I think that resonates with people as well, that kind of position of authenticity. I'm the same person you would see now as if you met me in the street. It doesn't change.
Mm-hmm. And is this the same? So how do you help people that you work with in terms of leveraging what? Because oftentimes when I decided to become a speaker, I sort of had to dig through what I had to show. So I realized I've been in some newspapers. And then I was then invited to some podcasts, and then the book, and then I was speaking on stages, and so I think when you start out, you sort of have to look back in your history and say okay, what can I use from my history? And people don't realize that they're sitting on a gold mine often.
Yeah. I think what you say is so true, but not just when you're starting out trying to be entrepreneurial. I think that's the case a lot of the time for most people. So when I speak to people who want to go for a job interview, whether that's internally or externally in their organisation, they often can't see what they've been doing or what they've been doing well, because it's just what they do. On a day-to-day basis, I send 500 emails. Not me, but they might say I send 500 emails. I speak to directors. I organise this, that, and the other. But that's just their day. They don't see that as being actually fantastic or something that shows how wonderfully credible they are. And so it's almost about drawing out of yourself what you've done well, and what messages you want the world to know about you. Because I think what I found when I worked in a city where there were people who were really very good at their job, but they were working away diligently in the corner and no one ever knew they were good at their job. And there were people who sometimes weren't as good at their job, but were really good at telling people how good they were. And I'm not saying that's fair, but I'm saying that that's often the reality, and everyone knows that person who probably didn't work as hard as you, but potentially has been more successful in whatever that might be. And it's really about how you market yourself and how you tell your story, and you need to tell that story. Whether you get help or not is kind of by the by, but it's about how you connect with your audience and tell your story.
Well, I guess when you get help, so if somebody attends a workshop with you and you kind of explain to them these things, ultimately they'll be more successful faster, because now they're listening to somebody with lots of experience about personal branding, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So I've had scenarios where I've coached someone and they haven't been able to get a job for 6 months. They're in a job, but they're trying to get another job, and have gotten the job, 3 weeks later, because they haven't thought about some of the things they've done in their past that was a better example than what they were using in the interview. Yeah. They haven't looked at their LinkedIn profile and realised it was basically empty other than a picture of themselves. They haven't considered, all the other aspects that contribute to you being the worthy candidate or that worthy organisation that's deserving of being that new client or getting that contract.
So in terms of the Apprentice, so you've now started your business, you're working with big clients, that's happening. How did the Apprentice come about?
So I've always been a fan of the Apprentice, and when I went on the show, it was 10 years old. So and I was 25 at the time. So from when I was 15, I was a fan, and I was far too young to go on the show. But I remember being at home shouting at the TV saying, you idiots, I could do that better, and I'm only 15.
Yeah.
Then I was old enough to go on the show, and I realised it probably isn't as simple as it looks.
Never is.
Sorry?
It never really is.
Oh, it never really is.
You read about people in the paper and you go like, I could do that. And then you try and then, well.
So then one day my husband came home and said, the applications for the Apprentice are open. I think you should apply. And I said, no, I don't, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be famous. I don't want to be on television. I don't potentially want to embarrass myself in front of the 8 million people that watch the show. What if I get fired in week 1 and none of my clients ever speak to me again? But at the same time, he said, look, you've got a fantastic idea for hosiery. I'll explain that in a second. But I had a fantastic idea, and how else are you going to get the investment? And, this is a great opportunity, and it can only heighten your profile. How bad could it be? So I still said no. He sent me various text messages with the link, and he printed the application form and basically forced me to apply. And once I applied, I realised how amazing an opportunity it might be if I got through to being on the show. So when they offered me the opportunity, I was like, you know what? Life is for living. Experiences are so important. And, if it doesn't go well, I just leave the country.
Well, I think that would be a bit dramatic, but yeah, okay.
I know, some people just go really
If it goes badly, hide.
Yeah. Get a new job. So that's kind of how it happened. And as you said, I got to the second place in the show and pitched my idea to redefine nude tights, and the rest is history.
So you and Mark got along pretty well, it seemed.
Yes. Yeah.
You still in contact?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, he's doing really well. Really proud of him.
Yeah. He seems to be doing fantastically well. He was on a couple of episodes ago.
Okay.
So how has The Apprentice changed you? So going in and then coming out, how did it change you?
It taught me an awful lot about television, not all of which was positive. How did it change me? I think I had a renewed confidence in the importance of personal branding, I think. I already thought it was important, but going into the process, I was very much myself. I was always very authentic in anything that I did. And I saw people who were not themselves, and I saw them not get to the end. And so to me, that's an illustration of the fact that actually, if you remain true and you actually are yourself, then that, and have a good business idea, that can get you much further than, fakery. And I think that was a really important thing. It taught me a lot about editing and television. Some days we were working for 4 days, which is like 100 hours of footage, and they'd edit it down into 30 minutes. So you didn't often see the business side of things, which I found a bit frustrating. But it was an amazing experience. It's very difficult to explain what it was like, but it's just one of those things that I'll, obviously remember forever, and has been good for business. Of
course. So what was the main thing in terms of business that happened after that?
So I launched my hosiery brand. So the idea was that the issue I found was I couldn't get tights, nude tights, for the men that are watching the stuff you put on the legs and stuff. So I couldn't get nude tights to match my skin tone. And I thought that was really odd in this day and age that I couldn't get it. I'm not that dark that it shouldn't be available. But at the same time, I thought, why is it that there were kind of 2 nude tones on the high street, kind of, a nude and a sort of American tan? That meant for me, anyone either side of that spectrum, if you were lighter or darker, you were fundamentally being ignored. And I thought, how is that possible that in 2014, as it was at the time, there were still not tights out there for other coloured people, lighter or darker. And so I really wanted to redefine nude by not just making a brand that's for, women of colour, but making a brand that was for everyone. Making tights that men, all women of all skin tones, and we have male customers as well, could get the right shade of tights.
You have male customers?
We do, yeah. Oh. Lots, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't think about that. I didn't see that on your homepage. There were no men.
Yeah. You don't know until you launch that you're going to have lots of male customers, to be fair. But we embrace it, and they've been really great, really good feedback from them as well. And so the Apprentice helped me launch that brand, because people, I at the end of the show had to make a decision. Do I want to continue just doing my business and, knowing what I'm doing and getting on with it? Or do I want to start something new? Mm-hmm. And I wasn't sure I wanted to start something new, if I'm quite honest. It was a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of money. But everyone kept coming up to me saying, Bianca, wear these tights. So I kind of was under pressure to do it. And it was great to have that level of support.
And when did you launch the brand, and what was your launch strategy for it?
Yeah, so we launched, I spent about a year working on getting the material right, getting the composition right, finding a factory in the UK, because I really wanted to make it in the UK, and just obviously getting money together and everything else. And then during that time, I'd been speaking to various stores and brands about getting it in there, and they were taking so long, and some of them didn't get it. They were still like, Bianca, I'm not sure, don't all white women want to be tanned? Do black women even buy tights? And it was kind of when I was getting those questions back, I thought, am I wrong or are they wrong? And, am I going to waste all my money investing in this? Or have they just missed the whole point completely, because I can't be the only woman in the world who wants tights? So I decided, after waiting forever for stores like Selfridges to do the order and get in store and give me dates, to just launch it online. So we launched online in November 2015. We went into Selfridges in January, and we're working on some other stockists at the moment, which I can't talk about. But it's going well.
So it's interesting because, again, we go back to the sort of question where, for the people that don't have a business that are starting out, we go. So in your first business, you had sort of proof of success, right? You had already done the workshops, you already had a client, so it was safer for other people to sort of buy. And I'm familiar with this because obviously when I started, I went through the same thing where people wouldn't buy because you didn't have a proof.
The track record.
And then then you launch online and you see success, and then Selfridges is interested, and then now it's in Selfridges. Other people are like, oh, it's at Selfridges. Then if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. So how do we actually make that first? How do we get that first testimonial, that first client? What's your strategy for that?
Well, funnily enough, Selfridges weren't the first people we went to. I didn't imagine in any kind of world that would be your first stockist as a new brand. It's just kind of not the done thing. So they were probably one of the last doors that I knocked on, and they had not watched The Apprentice, didn't know who I was. But when I told them the concept, we're like, yeah, we've got diverse customers. It makes sense to us. And so I think the point is that it's really about creating something that's innovative, that's different, and not being afraid to knock on the door. And when people close the door, just keep going. The reality of retail, which I know now, is that actually some of the most successful retail businesses are online. They're not necessarily in lots of stores. And so it's not embarrassing to just grow a business online and keep growing from there and then take it into a store. It's not necessarily about going to a store first and then working backwards, but having a store gives you credibility. So it's a difficult one. But once you've got good customers and you're proving the need, that's when it becomes easier to say to a store, look, we've already got X amount of customers. We're selling X amount per week. Clearly there's a need here. Are you interested?
I guess because your product is it a niche product or is it not a niche product, would you say?
Yeah, to some degree it is quite niche. Yeah, it's a niche idea. There's women. It's not niche in that it's a mass market product because there's women of all skin tones who buy tights, but it's niche in that it's something that hasn't been done in this way before, and I guess the price point makes it slightly more niche as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I guess, SEO and Google AdWords can be quite specific on certain terms if there's not like a lot of people offering the same product.
Well, there's lots of people offering nude tights, but there's not a lot of people offering nude tights in 8 skin tones. So nude tights are not unusual. From a Google perspective, it's a nightmare.
Okay.
because every brand has nude tights, but they just have 1 or 2 shades.
Right. So in terms of being a woman and black entrepreneur, how has that been a challenge or an advantage so far in your career?
I think a bit of both. I think when I started, I obviously was a woman, black, but also I was 22. So I think there were times when I used to go to meetings and say, look, I'm going to tell you all about your personal brand. And I'll kind of get that look like, you're 22. What do you know about my personal brand? Yeah. And so I then had to really build credibility within the industry for what I could do to prove myself. So, so there were times where I felt the door was kind of closed because actually you're not really right yet, I think. But there were also times where people were like, oh, great, a woman. This is interesting. Come on in. Oh, great, a woman who happens to be black. This is even more interesting. But I can't say I can't say it's always been positive, and I can't say it's always been negative. It's kind of been a balance of both. And I think there are times where actually they need a woman to represent on a panel, or they need a black woman to talk about an ethnicity issue. And so those are positive things. But the same might remain for some of my white colleagues who are female, who actually, they want a white woman on the panel. So I think it swings and roundabouts.
Okay. So either or. I mean, being young is always, challenging because people are like, oh, you're too young, you should wait, be like all the other people.
Yeah. See, the funny thing is now, with the millennial generation, I think it's becoming more accepted for someone to be in their early or mid-20s and start a business. I think now it's like, oh, you're right, you're a millennial, kind of makes sense. Whereas I think previously it wasn't as accepted. So I think it wasn't as difficult as it could have been. But I still see, one of these things I probably don't usually say, but when I came out of The Apprentice, and probably like most people in The Apprentice, you look for speaking agents or agents who can get you other opportunities in business. And the other people who were in The Apprentice who were not black got agents quite quickly.
Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't. And so that doesn't mean I didn't get as much work. I think I've gotten more, to be honest, but more because I'm proactive. Yeah. And I think that's a shame. And I think it's sad to see that actually in 2015, 2014, whatever it was, that still is an issue. And I can't think that it's because of me necessarily. So maybe it was because they didn't feel I would suit the type of clients they will be working with, or didn't suit the demographic of what they were trying to pursue. I don't really know what it was, but it seems unusual. And so it's hard to tell sometimes when it's based on racial bias or gender bias. You kind of just have to get on with it and just think, okay, well, it hasn't worked that way. What's my plan B?
Well, it seems a bit strange, especially since you were like in second place, and a woman. I'm not sure how many female winners of Apprentice are there.
Since it's been a business-based investment show, only one, I believe, Leah being the only one, Dr. Leah. But I'm saying people who didn't get to the final, or weren't in the final 5, got agents. And so, yeah, it's interesting. I can't say that's why, and I wouldn't want to say that's why, but it's hard to find other justifications. And so there are times when you don't know whether it's due to your race or gender.
Well, maybe we're spotting a business opportunity here.
Is it to be agents for TV people?
No, for black female TV personalities,
But the problem is the work there. So if you look at, unfortunately, if you look at television and you look at the demographic in terms of presenters who are of an ethnicity, there aren't many.
Okay.
So,
right.
That's not another barrier, because you now then have to knock down the door and say, well, why aren't there any? Why is there such little representation on television? Mm-hmm. Why do you feel that when you do represent someone of colour, it tends to be based on negative stereotype? Mm-hmm. It is very difficult to start looking at that as a big piece of work. It's not something small that can be changed overnight.
It's interesting. In terms of millennials, when I go to events, I see a lot of 20-year-olds sort of most sort of meetup events, people tend to be between 25 something and 30 something.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're seeing? Is there like a really growing trend amongst millennials to be entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think there is, and not necessarily just to be entrepreneurs, but potentially to be entrepreneurial. So to get a job in a large organisation, but then to also start doing something on the side. And when I say on the side, that might be on the side as in a project within the organisation. So I know lots of people who've got a great job, but on the side they're trying to start a women's law group or women in business group within the organisation, or they started, something based on LGBT or race because they want to start something else, or they're trying to go into schools and help schools start thinking about law or business. And so I think there tends to be this younger generation aren't happy with just having a job. They're not happy with just being good at their job. They want something else that kind of complements that. And if the organisation aren't willing to give them that, then they're looking elsewhere for it.
And in terms of my personal brand, do you think I should wear glasses or no glasses or glasses? Because I usually don't wear glasses on the show. I
wear glasses. Yeah, I wear glasses too, so it's okay. But I think I very much like your glasses. They're very good frames.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about these are my author glasses.
Are they?
I bought them when I was writing my book to look like an author.
And it's working for you.
Yeah, I went for the sort of nerdy professor look. That was part of my author brand.
I like it. It frames your face. It's very good. Very good pen.
Well, thank you. So do you actually, in terms of branding, do you actually work with people on like what they wear and how they stand? Like is it more like a paper thing? How do you take us through your step-by-step process of personal branding for people?
So as a part of, when I started the business, I really wanted there to be an element of how you dress as well. So the B group has Be Branded, which is our personal branding work for corporates, Be Employed, which is our university and college-based work, and Be Styled, which is our styling side. So I have a team of 8 stylists that take our clients shopping and help them to look the part for their brand or for an event or just to revamp their wardrobe. But when I'm working one-on-one with an individual, for example, one of my clients, she is very successful, is at the top of a very great organisation, but is perceived to be quite matronly. So she did a survey with her staff members, and they said she was a bit of a matron. They didn't really like the way she dressed. They didn't feel very powerful. They didn't feel it complemented her position. And so we had to work on, one, how she was addressing people for them to feel that she was matronly. 2, what do we need to do with your dress to make sure that it complements where you are in the organisation and where you hope to be in the next 5 years? So it can be a mixture of both. Online brand, personal brand, confidence building, and also how you physically present yourself. Because, that's such an important part of your personal brand. You get 7 seconds to make a first impression, and a large proportion of that is going to be based on, your physical appearance.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So in the sort of entrepreneurial world, there's I would categorize people into 3. You got like the sort of suit, like dandy suit, with the silk scarf thing.
Yeah.
That's one type.
Okay.
And then you have the sort of more sort of open shirt, blazer, jeans.
Yeah.
Which I'm in that category.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Kind of in the middle.
Yes.
And then you got like t-shirts and saggy jeans.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which one is the most solid one to use?
So the really important thing about personal branding is there's no one fits all answer. The idea is that you are dressing in a way that complements you, your body shape, and the industry you're working in. So your personal brand should define you, but also complement that industry. So, for example, if you were working in a bank and you turned up with the 3rd category in some saggy pants and a t-shirt, you probably wouldn't get the job. But equally, if you turned up for TV, or media, and you turned up in category 1 in a full suit with a hanky, they probably think you're a bit weird. So it's really about understanding the industry, but also, sometimes you might want to stand out, but understanding the industry, the culture of the organisation, and who you want to be and how you want to be perceived. So I would never say, I don't get all my clients in a row and say, okay, let's create a little brand of Bianca Miller clones. That's not what it's about. It's really about understanding that person.
Yes, and which brings us actually back to something you said earlier about in the Apprentice, like the people that were trying to be somebody they were not, they often got kicked out of the show, whilst the people that were like just genuinely themselves, they stayed in the longest. So in the branding process of yourself, I guess one of the big challenges is like bringing out the best of you and not sort of being somebody else just to be somebody else, because I think that's something that not everybody, but a lot of people are challenged by, is like, I'm going to this thing, I need to be this for these people, but now suddenly you lost yourself.
Yeah.
So now that when you're there in that situation, you now feel that you're being something for them rather than being there for you. So what can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts around that area?
So, I think our mantra as a business is be you, only better. So it's about being the best version of yourself and kind of putting your best foot forward, as you would probably if you went for a job interview and so on. But I think it's really about, I think it's about being honest and being authentic. I think people communicate better with you if you are being honest. Now, that's not brutally honest. If you're really, you're going for an interview and really you want to be in a tracksuit and that's not the industry, then there are times when you have to smarten up. This is real life. So if you have to go for a job and you need to dress in a suit because that's what's applicable to that organisation, then that's what you have to do. But being your authentic self is, your true personality, really saying what you're good at, not being, too cocky, but equally not being self-deprecating. I think a lot of the time, people who are actually good, and often women, are very self-deprecating. They won't say, actually, I'm really good at this. They'd rather say, I'm okay. I did it once. And actually, I think people are afraid to kind of blow their own trumpet. And so I always encourage people to be authentic, go networking, meet people, listen, don't always talk, listen to what they have to say as well. But also to build what I call brand ambassadors. So people around you who know what you're about and can tell people about you on your behalf. So you don't have to feel awkward about saying, hi, I'm great. Other people are saying, have you met this person? They're good at this. Or, oh, you need that? I've got a friend I know who could do that. Or I've got a colleague. I think the more you build that sort of reputation and that sort of network around you and those ambassadors, the easier it all becomes. It's not supposed to be difficult. It's not supposed to be like, oh, I've got to think about my personal brand today, because it should just be you,
But of course, it can be good to look to other people for inspiration, right? So like because I strongly believe, and especially in the UK, but I think all over the world, like if you show up and you're smartly dressed, you're well dressed, then people respect you more.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. It's our eyes. They can take in way more data than our brain can process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we notice the details. Like even though we maybe consciously don't know it, we're still in our brain somewhere processing. So dress for occasion. It's a challenging thing, isn't it? I mean, I find it challenging. I have my safe outfits. I think everybody does. Like you have like a safe outfit that you do, that you always can wear, right?
Yeah. I think everyone has a safe outfit, and I think it is challenging. And I always would prefer to be overdressed and underdressed in any given scenario. Okay. But I would say if it's an event-based activity, try and look up the previous events online. Try and have a look at the pictures from that event, and so you can gauge what people were wearing if you feel that nervous about it, or find out if there is a dress code. But you're right, it's probably always better to be overdressed than underdressed. And unfortunately, whether it's fair or not, that first impression is so important. And I think it's best for someone to think, oh, dressed up a bit, didn't he? As opposed to, oh, did he not know where he was coming?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a balance. It's a balance.
Absolutely. So where are you in 3 years? What's your main goal in 3 years?
Yeah, so my main goal is to grow the team. So currently I deliver a lot of the training, mostly because my clients ask for me, which is lovely, but not necessarily good at growing business doing that. So to grow the team, have more trainers who I train to deliver my workshops, to do more in different organisations and to do more training internationally. That's kind of where I see the B group going. And with Bianca Miller London, the hosiery brand, just to keep bringing out innovative products that suit the modern woman. You know, I think there's a lot out there that could be done within the nude niche and elsewhere. So that's kind of where I am.
And what's your main challenge right now, and what's your strategy for getting through it?
I think my main challenge is probably staffing, and I think most entrepreneurs and business owners, talent is difficult. You know, there's a balance between getting talent that's good enough that you feel proud that they represent in your organisation, and then there's a balance between obviously cost of that talent if they are so good that they are good for your organisation, and talent I think is always tough.
Yeah.
And getting people who are driven, you know, I find.
Well, you don't want to have too driven people though.
Yeah.
Because then they're like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, I'm so driven. I'm going to start tomorrow. Yeah, and I know everything about your business.
Yeah.
Just, you know, I like hiring young people because I think they're just really enthusiastic and so on. But some of them are just, I don't know, they seem to have lost the kind of will to work hard, which is interesting. So
they probably read my book.
Yeah. Maybe I need to read the book. Maybe
Don't read the book.
Sorry, oh God, should admit that, should I? I'm going to buy it. I'm going to read it.
Never work again. It's actually about doing what you love. So because I've gone through a long time period where I kind of automated my business and I had people and staff and systems, and I didn't really have to go to work to make money. And that's what I wrote about, and I was so bored and I was so miserable by not working, and that's that's really what the book is about. But oftentimes people need to get to there to realize like, oh, this isn't it, and then you go back and you work harder than you ever have before. So that's really what
it's funny you say that, because you're right. That I love what I do, so I never feel like sometimes I feel like I'm working. When I'm doing admin and emails, I feel like I'm working. When I'm out there talking to clients, helping clients, advising them, delivering workshops, that doesn't feel like work to me. You know, it just gives me that energy and that enthusiasm. And that's when you feel like you're not working. Yeah. And I think that's the great thing about loving what you do.
Absolutely.
Not enough people love what they do.
And it's difficult because you got to go through lots of pain to really get there.
Yes.
You got to dare to do the things that scare the shit out of you. Really, typically.
True.
So, favorite book that you want to recommend?
I just finished reading, and I know I'm a bit late, but I've just finished reading Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, and I really enjoyed it. I feel it gave really good information. You know, it gave her story, but also gave you sort of insightful tips on how to better your future potential. A lot of the tips were personal branding based, I would say, but that's great. It kind of, it was great to see it from her perspective, someone who has done phenomenally. CEO of Facebook is no mean feat. COO of Facebook is no mean feat. So
is that somebody you would like to meet?
Oh, I'd love to meet her. I think she's great, and I think to see another woman championing women. And that's not, I'm not anti-men, I should really make that clear. I think men in business are fantastic too. But I think women championing women is such an important thing and isn't there enough, I think. So to see that on such a large scale and her encouraging it is really good. And I think it's been really productive for a lot of people.
Well, from a male perspective, I think it's great that, you go to an entrepreneurial event and it's not like 95% men. It's good to see that it's like evening out.
Yes, yeah.
It's even worse in the tech world.
Yeah,
Like if you go to a tech startup event, it's like 95% men. And it's like, okay.
Which might be positive for the women that are there, because
yeah, absolutely. It's just I wish there was like a bigger mix of people, because because everybody brings lots to the table, and so if you have like a more diverse group meeting up, you get better companies. Yeah, better ideas, better. Yeah, absolutely, I agree. So, in terms of the best tip for the people watching the show, do you have like an entrepreneurial tip of the day? Entrepreneurial tip of the day. It sounds like I've stolen it from Nike, which I kind of may have, but the tip is just do it. You know, I think sometimes you don't do it and you regret not doing it, and it's better to have tried and failed than never to have tried, is really my philosophy. So obviously do the research, do the investigations, work out how much you need, whether this is entrepreneurial or in terms of a career change, but do it. Stop talking about it, get on with it. So for people that have listened to the episode, where can we get more information about you, and is there anything that we as an audience can do for you? You can get more information on my website, so www.the-b as in Bravo Echo -group.uk or biancamiller.co.uk or biancamillerlondon.co.uk. But anyway, just type my name in, you can find me. Yeah, put Bianca Miller into Google and you will come up with her number one, I believe. So, Excellent, good. I'm contactable on all social media as well. But what can you do for me? I think just support. You know, I'm a growing entrepreneur. I don't feel in any way that I'm the finalised product. So, you know, if there's any suggestions, you've looked at my site and we looked at what we do and you think you can make suggestions, or you think that we could actually help you in terms of talks or workshops, get in touch. You know, I think it's important to support each other. Or if you're a talented person that wants to work for you, you can also reach out, right? Yeah. So send us lots of work and then also apply for a job. Fantastic. Well, that sounds amazing. Cheers. So guys, Bianca, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like underneath and share it with your friends on all the tweeting and tooting and Facebooking that you might be doing, or snapping. Whatever these multiple channels are now called. That makes me sound really old. I actually do know what they're called, I think. Check out Bianca Miller. She's accomplished amazing things, and she will continue to astonish the world with her creations and success. So thank you for being on the show. Thank you. Bye.
This podcast is brought to you by MrOutsource.com. Outsourcing to the Philippines done for you. Mr. Outsource is a recruitment company matching busy entrepreneurs with Filipino virtual assistants, so you can have the time to focus on what's important.